Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm just starting to see a few more people just logging in, so we'll just give it another 30 seconds. We've got quite a bit to get through today, so we'll not hang on too long. Just bear with us for another 30 seconds. Okay, again, welcome to today's webinar. I will apologise in advance. I am full of cold, so if I start coughing and spluttering, I do apologise, but hopefully we'll be able to get through this session. So we're going to be looking at the plumbing and domestic heating 9289, the new EPA version 1.2. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So the session is being recorded. It'll be sent out to all attendees after the webinar. Everyone is on mute. The slides will be sent to the attendees alongside with the recording. Any questions that you have, please feel free to ask questions at any point using the question function, which I'll show you on the next slide. There is other members of the team that are sat in the background, so they'll be able to answer questions as we're going along, so you're not having to wait right till the end. But please feel free to ask any questions. Any questions that we don't manage to get around to today, or we can't answer at this moment in time, we will get back to you outside the meeting. And obviously if there's a substantial amount of questions, we will put together a frequently asked questions sheet, which will go live on the website. If for any reason the session cuts out, please use the original webinar link to gain access back into the session. So just quickly, the GoToWebinar navigation tools. So again, you've got the questions tab there, so you'll see the little box with a question mark in it. So if you have got a question, please feel free to type your questions in there. There is a little materials box which has a paperclip on it. So if you click on there, you will get a PDF version of the slides that we're going to run through today. Real quickly, the building services team. So myself, Simon Quince, I'm the technical advisor for BSc here at City and Guilds. Paloma is our senior product lead. Salim is our industry manager, and Matt is our product manager. As I say, some of the team are sat in the background today, so they'll be answering questions as we go along. The building services engineering sector webpage. So if you're not familiar with our website, we do have a particular specific building services engineering webpage that you can log on to there. You can get all the latest sector research, guides to qualifications, future level skills, landscape, etc. And we also have a green skills webpage for those qualifications such as the air source, your EV charging, battery storage systems. So plumbing and domestic heating, the 9289. Today's agenda, we're going to look at the plumbing and domestic heating standard version 1.2, some of the differences between the previous versus the current. We're going to take a look into the endpoint assessment at a glance, some of the resources requirements, the structure and the components. We're going to look at the endpoint assessment support materials available. And as I said at the beginning there, we'll have some time for question and answers. So the plumbing and domestic heating 9289, so the standard 0303, this is version 1.2, which last updated on the 7th of the 4th, 2025. Typical EPA period 6 months, typical duration to gateway 48 months, maximum funding 22,000. So the last code 225. So we'll take a great look at this as we go along. Delivering this standard with City and Guilds. So the new on-program qualification 9289 is now live, aligned to the standard version 1.1. Maintain the on-program qualifications 9189 aligned to the standard version 1.0. So this means that the end dates for the qualifications, so the 9189, the 04, 05, 06, 07, 94, 95, 96 and 97 remain as follows. So end registration will be the 31st of December this year, and end certification will be the 31st of December 2028. Excuse me. Check funding availability across the standard versions, funding bands and learner eligibility prior to registering learners on our on-programme qualifications. Please be mindful that learners registered on the LARS on standard version 1.0 must complete the 9189 qualifications. Learners registered on the LARS on the standard version 1.1 must complete the 9289 versions. Please note the endpoint assessment components 9189, 24, 25, 26, 27 are aligned to the standard version 1.0 until the 31st of the 12th, 2029. A lot of this information on the on-programme qualification can be found in our previous webinar. There is a link at the bottom of this page should you wish to go and view that. Just taking a little look at the overview of the differences. So obviously the current standard is version 1.0. Last registration date to the EPA is the 31st of the 12th, 2029. Those registrations will be the 9189, 25, 25, 26 and 27. And the funding band was 21,000. The gateway requirements were the level 3 plumbing and domestic heating qualification and your level 2 maths and English. The new standard, the 1.2, available from the 19th of September this year. So the current versions are 9289, 12 and 14, which we're going to be looking at today. Funding is 22,000. The gateway is level 3 diploma in plumbing and domestic heating. For the 9289, 12 have completed the training, but not the assessments for these CCN1 and CEN-WAT or equivalent qualifications, and also maths and English in line with apprenticeship funding rules. Plumbing domestic heating. So the EPA pathways and launch dates. So today we'll be looking at the 9289-12, which is the domestic gas-fired hot water and heating appliance technician. This is for apprentices who have already completed or are completing the gas safety assessments with a third-party organisation. That launched on the 19th of September this year. The 9289-13 will be the domestic air source heat pump and solar thermal systems technician. That will be launching early 2026. The 9289-14, which is a non-domestic plumbing technician, again launched 19th of September this year. And finally, we have the 9289-15. So this is going to be the domestic gas-fired hot water heating appliance technician, including gas safety assessment. So this is for apprentices who are going to complete the gas safety assessment with City and Guilds. So there'll be more information around that, which we're looking to launch early 2026. Core requirements. So for the 9289-12, so there's a knowledge test, a practical planning test, a practical competence test, and an interview. So those of you delivering previous qualifications will be very similar with the structure. There are some slight changes when it comes to the 9289-14, which we're going to look at. And there's a very basic overview of what we're looking at: the knowledge test, the practical planning test, the practical competence test, and the interview. So as I just mentioned there, for the 9289-14, we've still got the knowledge test. We're going to look at that shortly. We've still got the practical planning test. The practical competence test is longer. It's larger for the non-domestic, which again we'll look at in a little bit more detail as we go through this webinar. And then again, you've got the underpinning apprenticeship portfolio of evidence interview. So same structure: knowledge test, practical test, practical planning test, practical competence test, and interview. So I'll have a look at these core assessments and how they tie together. So an overview of the EPA core. So for the 9289, as we just spoke about, there's a knowledge test core paper, which is the 60 questions. There's a practical planning test, there's a practical competence test, and there's the interview. For the 9289-14, again, knowledge test, the same 60 questions. So we've got the same practical planning test. Practical competence test, as we'll look at shortly, is a little different to the 9289-12. And also we've got the interview. Now, the interview will also have 5 additional questions around the non-domestic plumbing with an additional 30 minutes added on. Looking at the knowledge test, so this is the same knowledge test for the 9289-12 as it would be for the 9289-14. So it's a 60 questions, it's pass, distinction or fail, it's a multiple choice question paper, it's a 2-hour duration, It's carried out over Evolve. Permitted materials, it's a closed book exam. And again, it's the 9289-300. So dependent whether you're doing the 9289-12 or the 9289-14, the knowledge assessment paper is the 9289-300. Assessment 2 is the practical planning test. Again, this is the same across both of these EPA, so for the 9289-12 and the 9289-14. If you're doing the practical planning test, it's the 9289-700. Again, it's a pass or fail. It's a practical. The duration is 5 hours. It's completed over 2 working days. Permitted materials, it's an open book, so you can see the list of materials, list of information and documents there that you can use. Location carried out. The apprentice must take the practical planning test in a suitably controlled and invigilated environment that is a quiet room and free from distraction or influence. Resources, so equipment and resources must be provided and set up by the provider or employer. So the same task. So for the knowledge test, it's the same exam. For the practical planning test, it's the same assessment. This is where things change up slightly. For the practical competence test, so for those learners registered on the 9289-12, the domestic gas-fired hot water and heating, this is going to be the assessment 9289-701. It's pass or a fail. Type of assessment is practical. There's 3 tasks, so task 1, task 2 and task 3 to be completed over 7 hours. The independent assessor can increase the time of the practical out to 10%. Permitted materials, see the practical competence test resource pack. Location, obviously, practical competence test for non-integrated tasks must take place in a simulated environment at the provider or employer premises. And again, resources, equipment and resources must be provided and set up by the provider or employer. So this is for the 9289-12 domestic gas-fired hot water, and it's the tasks 1, 2, and 3. For the 9289-14, this has a different assessment code, which is 9289-705. So again, it's graded pass or fail. It's a practical assessment. So learners will be carrying out tasks 1, 2, and 3 over 7 hours to be completed in 1 day. So that is the same as what you would do for the 9289-12. However, there's additional tasks here, tasks 4A and 4B, which is 12 hours long and must be completed over a further 2 days. So the independent assessor can again increase the time of the practical competence test by up to 10%. Permitted materials, again, see the test resource pack, simulated environment, very similar to what we just looked at before. But again, the difference here between the 9289-12 and 9289-14 is the additional non-domestic tasks 4A and 4B. So the interview, so as spoke about before, obviously the assessment task 4 is the interview of underpinning apprenticeship portfolio of evidence. This is the 9289-702. So this is the interview for the 9289-12. It's a minimum of 10 questions covering the core, a duration of 1 hour. The EPA can increase the time again by up to 10%. The apprentice permitted materials are the apprenticeship portfolio of evidence and the evidence matrix. Interview will be conducted by a video conference, so a quiet room free from distractions and interruptions, access to a computer with video conferencing software, which is tested prior to the assessment starting. Video conferencing software should be advised at the point of booking. So please bear that in mind. This is for your professional interview for your 9289-12. As I mentioned previously, the interview for the 9289-14 slightly different, so it is going to look around minimum of 10 questions around the core. There's also going to be a minimum of around 5 questions on the non-domestic plumbing. So we're looking at a duration of 1 hour and 30 minutes for that. Again, the EPA can increase it by 10% if required. Apprentice portfolio of evidence matrix, the same as before. Interview will be conducted by video conference, so a quiet room free from distraction and interruptions. So a slight difference there between the interview for the 9-8-9-12, which is just the 10 questions around the core, to the 9-8-9-14, which is the 10 questions around the core and the a minimum of 5 questions around the non-domestic. So the endpoint assessments, so they're looking at the 9-8-9-12 and 14. So we're looking at the pathway assessments now. So the 9-8-9-12, so the pathway assessments, we're going to have the knowledge test for the CCN1 and also the CENWAT. And then you're going to have a practical competence test, so the CCN1 practical and the CENWAT practical. For the 9-8-9, we've got an additional non-domestic plumbing paper 2, which will be a further 30 multiple choice questions to be completed in 60 minutes. And as we spoke about before, we've got those additional practical competence tests, tasks 4A and 4B. So they've got to be done. It's 12 hours over 2 days for the non-domestic plumbing. Integrated assessments for 9-8-9-12. So again, obviously we've got the knowledge paper test 2, which is the CENWAT and CCN1. And obviously the practical competence for that would be the CCN1 core domestic gas safety and the CENWAT domestic gas central heating boilers and water heaters. For the 9-8-9-14, again, we've got that additional knowledge paper. So 30 questions, multiple choice, 1 hour. You can see there you need 18 to 30 to be able to get a pass. So it's looking at a 60% pass rate. And you've got those additional tasks for A and B for the non-domestic. So just having a bit of an overview there. So if we look at the 9-8-9-12, so your knowledge test, closed book knowledge test, invigilated environment, demonstrate the knowledge mapped to this assessment. So again, that's the 9-8-9-300. It's carried out over the Evolve platform, 1 mark per multiple choice question, 60 questions. There is a reset or retake only for failed papers. Duration 2 hours, pass, fail, pass or distinction. The practical planning test for the 9-8-9-12. So again, this is the 9-8-9-700 assessment. So produce a design plan for a domestic cold and hot water system, invigilated by a provider/employer. Demonstrate the knowledge skills mapped to this assessment method. So the structure is a desk-based written assessment. Can be completed either digital or paper. Providers employers must book the EPA assessment pack shared with the provider employer by Sitting Guild's EPA team before the booked assessment date. Provider employer uploads completed test and declaration of authenticity to EPA Pro. The IEPA will review the grade and test against the past grading descriptors assigned to the assessment method. So reset or retake would be the whole task. It's a 5 hours duration for this to be taken over 2 days, and it's a pass or fail. Again, looking at the 9-8-9-12, so looking at the practical competence tests, so practical demonstration of knowledge, skills and behaviours mapped to the assessment method. The structure with task 1, installation of a cloakroom. Task 2 will be electrical installation and service of domestic heating system. Duration is 7 hours in 1 day, and the grading is a pass or fail. Moving on to the interview. Again, the IEPA will ask the apprentice questions to give the apprentice the opportunity to demonstrate knowledge, skills and behaviours mapped to the assessment method. This will be video conferencing. The apprentice can refer to and illustrate their answers with evidence from their apprenticeship portfolio of evidence submitted in Gateway with a declaration of authenticity. Portfolio of evidence is not assessed. A template evidence matrix is provided to help the apprentice prepare for the interview by ensuring they have the evidence to talk about for every grading descriptor. The EPA will review the grade and test against the pass and distinction grading descriptors assigned to the assessment method. So again, if there's a reset or a retake, that will be the whole interview that has to be done. It's a 1 hour interview, pass, fail or distinction. And for the 9-8-9-12 only, we've got the Integrated Assessment Accreditation Scheme, so the ACS basically. So obviously we've got an overview, so an integrated qualification, which means both qualifications and the apprenticeship should be completed, passed and awarded during the same period. Incorporates the requirements for the Accreditation Certification Scheme ACS and is industry recognised and mandatory route for gas engineers to attain the necessary qualifications and competence required to work on the Gas Safe Register. So again, the structure, assessment completed at the end of the EPA period. If the apprentices previously completed ACS assessments, this can be accepted if there's a minimum of 6 months before the certification renewal date. Following qualifications, obviously CCM1, core domestic gas safety, and SEMWAT, domestic gas, central heating boilers and water heaters. Again, that's graded on a pass or fail. Taking a look at the 928-914, so for the non-domestic, the knowledge test. So as we've just spoke about a moment ago, it's the 928-9300, 60 questions. They obviously have got the second paper for the non-domestic, so there's a paper 2, which is a 30 multiple choice question paper. So they have 2 hours for the 60 question, paper 1, and 1 hour for the 30 question, paper 2. As before with the 928-912, the planning practical planning test is the same as what you would have done on the 928-9. Sorry, it's the same for the 928-914 as it was for the 12. It's 5 hours long to be taken over 2 days. Desk-based written assessment. Pass or fail. Practical competence test. So again, this is slightly different from the 928-9. So although they will complete the installation of the cloakroom, task 1, and task 2 and 3, the electrical installation and service of the domestic heating system, they've got the additional task A, installation of non-domestic plumbing, and task 4B, service of non-domestic plumbing systems. Oral questioning from the EPA to explore case B's linked to the practical assessment. The EPA will review and grade the test against the pass grading descriptors assigned to the assessment method. Again, resit or retake. So this is important. You will only resit the part of the task that's failed. So you won't have to resit the whole practical competence test again. It'll just be that one component task that you've failed. 929-914 is 19 hours in total. So the 7 hours for the task 1, 2, and 3, and then the 12 hours for the tasks 4A and 4B with a pass or fail grading. As I mentioned briefly before, the professional interview. So this will be carried out over a video conference, again using the apprentices portfolio, but there will be additional questions. So there'll be a minimum of 10 questions around the core, with a minimum of 5 additional questions around the non-domestic plumbing. So this gives this duration of 1.5 hours. Again, sorry, this is with a pass, fail, or distinction grading. Resources. So access to the EPA resources, there's a couple of QR codes there. If you've not already been on the website, they're on the website, so you can click on via the website and open these documents. Or you can use the QR codes that are there on the screen. If you need to speak to any of the team about the qualification, then please complete the BSE contact form. There is a dedicated plumbing and domestic heating webpage. So again, just for ease and speed, there is a QR code there. It'll take you directly to the 9289, where you'll find those documents that we just looked at. Again, the PDF is in the paperclip top of your screen. So if you want to download the PDF version of these slides, you can obviously access these QR codes at your own leisure. EPA processes. So I'm going to hand over now to a colleague, Janice, who will run through the EPA processes with you.
Thanks, Simon. Hi, everybody. If I have the next slide, please, Simon. So yeah, I just want to talk you through the processes and obviously just give you an update, obviously, on ourselves. So you've got Simon as our technical advisor, and then you've got your other support from the partnership managers of myself, Rebecca, and Maurice. That can support you with any of the processes and set up for endpoint assessment in terms of making sure you've got our resource packs, etc. So you can contact any of us. We know we work together, but we work roughly on regions, but we all work nationally. So just reach out to us for any support. Next slide, please. So for these standards, for obviously this is a new assessment. You will need to go through our approval process, which will vary slightly depending whether you're already an existing customer or whether you are a new customer to City and Guilds. So for those of you that are existing customers, you will need to go into your walled garden, so whether yourself has access or it's a quality member or a head or your head of department, into that quality section on EPA Pro, and you will then click onto the form section, and then there'll be a drop down menu on the screen, and you can select EPA application form. So these obviously have got separate product numbers depending on the actual type of assessment. So obviously, as Simon's mentioned a few times, we've got the 9289-12 and the 9289-14. So you will have to apply for both of those on that form. If you are obviously delivering both different ones and you want learners on different endpoint assessments. And then that will then, once that's been processed, take a couple of days, then you'll have access to those resources in EPA Pro to access as well, which is, you've got all the support materials in there, resource packs, EPA packs, etc. are live and in there, as well as some being on the website, but they're password protected, whereas in EPA Pro they're not. So we would always recommend you get them from there. If you are a new customer and have never worked with City and Guilds before on any product, so you don't already have a walled garden account, then the first thing you need to do is actually to do an application form on our website, just an inquiry form. So then one of us knows to reach out to you, and then we can start that process. Once you've got set up on walled garden, then you'd follow that same process of completing the EPA application form, and then getting access to it. So that's the way you sort of work that journey of working with ourselves. Next slide, please, Simon. And it just really wanted to talk you through, obviously, the timeframes for endpoint assessment. So with any of our standards, obviously you register learners onto EPA Pro at the time you want to. You pay £50 registration fee per learner, and then the balance of that assessment is paid once we release the results. We don't put anything at Gateway, it's when the results are released. So our general process where we work is, obviously we'll get the learners onto EPA Pro, upload your Gateway evidence. Our Gateway team will then check that within 3 working days. Generally, I think we're checking within 24 hours most of the time, but we have an SLA of 3 days. Once that's gone through, on the Gateway form, you'll actually tell us when ideally you would like that endpoint assessment taking place. We do have a lead time document on our webpage, so depending on the types of assessments that's going to take place, depending on what our lead times generally are, on most where we've got a portfolio that we need to check over, it's a 15-day turnaround. So it's from the learner going through Gateway, the first available date will be 15 days later. Saying that, depending obviously again on time of the year and requirements of customers, that can be a little bit more, but we aim for 15 days. Once all the assessments have taken place, your results are out within 7 working days, and they'll be on EPA Pro with the learner feedback. So within the file section of EPA Pro, you will have learner feedback, whether the learners pass or fail. That will be available in the system as a document, not on a feedback page, but as a document in the file section. If someone's not used to using EPA Pro and you want some support, then again, do please reach out to one of the 3 of us, and we will help with that. So that's our sort of normal process. We appreciate for customers that often when you're working within a college environment and you probably need to plan when workshops are available, we have an alternative option for booking for some standards, and we include that in the plumbing standard as well. So if you have the next slide, please, Simon. We offer a pre-gateway option whereby you can plan in advance. This means that you can actually pre-book and hold date prior to the learners getting through the Gateway and being ready for endpoint assessment. So we could, for example, we could say, I want to start planning for February half term. I know that I've got the workshop available then, and I know that I'm going to have a group of 8 learners ready to go through endpoint assessment at that point. So what you would do is you fill out you enter the learners onto the system, and then you so the screen went from here then, so then you would enter them onto EPA Pro, and you complete a manual booking form where you would fill in the learner names and what date you would like, and then we'll provisionally book those on the system. The difference is with this system is that you need to get them through Gateway a little bit early. So normally, like I said on the previous slide, it's a 3 weeks from booking the endpoint assessment taking place. When you're pre-booking, we need them through Gateway 5 weeks before, because we appreciate sometimes things change, learners maybe aren't quite ready, and you want to release that date. That then gives us a chance to release that date and give that to somebody else. So the differences are, yes, you can plan in advance, and you can book 1 learner on each day, and then nearer to the time add a second learner on, or depending on whether you've got the space in the workshop. But it means you can start planning in advance. I think the benefit of this also is that you can give learners a date in advance, and from speaking to some other customers that have been already using this service, they do see a shift in the behaviour of their apprentices when they know they've got a date to work towards. So this can really sort of help with your achievements each year as well. And this is an all year round option that you could be planning in advance. So ideally, I think 6 months before is the best time to start using it, where you're then saying, right, in 6 months' time, you are going to have your endpoint assessment. This is the date you've got. This is then you can work back with them to see when they need to get their portfolio in, and that normally really helps everybody get those achievements in. If you want to use that service, again, please do reach out, and we can obviously have a personal call to go through the requirements, show you the forms, how they need to be filled in, and then help you on that first batch of pre-gateways. But honestly, I think it really does take the headache out of arranging the endpoint assessments when you can plan in advance. Simon, I'll hand back over to yourself.
Thank you, Janice. So just a little bit more information here. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, the DFE and stuff are looking at EPA reforms at the moment. So this is just a little bit of guidance on what we know at this stage. So apprenticeship reforms, future landscape. So the minimum duration has been reduced. So the minimum apprenticeship duration reduced from 12 months to 8 months. This also affects the off-the-job training, which we'll look at shortly. So now each standard will have its own stated off-the-job training. So it applies to shorter standards and foundation apprenticeships designed to improve flexibility and access. Endpoint assessments, so simplification of EPA plans, fewer assessment components, greater use of digital and remote assessment, more flexibility for providers and employers. Foundation apprenticeships introduced, so new level 2 foundation apprenticeships launched for 16 to 21-year-olds, shorter, more accessible pathways for skilled trades designed to feed into full apprenticeships or employment. As I just said there, the rules around the off-the-job training now from the 1st of August 2025 are to be determined on a standard-by-standard basis. So this is to set the minimum requirement for each apprenticeship standard. So again, there's a little bit of information on there. So just be aware of what qualifications you're looking at and delivering, and what the off-the-job training requirements are for those moving forward. It's a little bit from us. If getting involved with City and Guilds is something that you may have considered in the past, there's a QR code there. There's all sorts of different types of jobs and stuff that you can do with us, whether it be development, whether it's assessment and support resources. If it's something you're interested in, then please have a click on the QR code there, have a look into that. Furthermore, we have our associate vacancies. So again, this could be anything from examiners, AEPAs, EQAs, TQAs, moderators. There's a whole range of different associate vacancies out there. It certainly helped me when I was in my position, because I was a head of faculty and delivering, to understand the qualifications or to have a greater understanding. I've done a lot of associate work myself before moving into this position. So again, it's on the web page there, but if it's something you're interested in, please have a look at that. There is a survey there, so if you would be kind enough to please, so click on this QR code, and if you could just leave us a response there for this webinar, that would be great. I appreciate you may not have time now, so again, that you will get access to these slides, and the PDF version is in the paperclip if you've not clicked on that and downloaded already. Just a bit of information about Sitting Guilds. I think what we'll do is we'll look at questions, see if any questions have come in. Just give me a second. Right, Holly, we currently assess our own apprentices. Through the BPA CAS Assessment Centre. What programme do I need to ensure current apprentices are registered on, please? So this is for the 928 912, Holly, it's the ACS. If you're interested in the 928 915, which obviously we're looking at launching next year, if you want to use our Sitting Guilds Blue Flame assessments. Mark, in terms of completing ACS as part of the EPA, will the IPA be using the centre's ACS centre? And if so, how will this work logistically? Will the IPA visit centre prior to understand layout route plans? No, the EPA or our assessor does not have access to ACS equivalent assessments. The centre can manage this internally. Just trying to read through this, sorry. Does the change to CCM1 and SEM1 integrated into the EPA change the structure of the Phase 4 assessments on the programme? Yes, the on-programme assessments are now in place to ensure learners have completed the relevant training, IGEM/IG1. The on-programme is now basically equivalent to the MLP and will allow learners to then sit the relevant ACS, Sitting Guilds, Blue Flame assessments in the EPA. What is the electrical installation? Is it to do with the heating system, and do they have to test it? Yes, they have to install an electrical component and complete the relevant tests required from the assessment. The assessment is now live. For more information, go into the assessment pack and you can take a look at that. Obviously, we can't go into any assessment detail on a webinar. Do you know when it will go live on Walled Garden? So apologies there. The 928, 912 and 14 went live on the 19th of September and is on Walled Garden now. Just a quick one. I'm just trying to read through these now. Is there a specific test around mobile phones? I was involved with a certification body meeting last week, and 80% of the investigated complaints, the candidates being found in possession of a mobile phone, headphone, smartphone, watch or equivalent. So all our assessments will specify the requirements for things like mobile phones and access to internet, and they'll all follow the JCQ guidance and rules. Please can you confirm the EPA price for this new version of the standard? Prices will be available when the product goes live on the catalogue on Walled Garden. Question, do the Phase 4 assessments have to be with a combination bore, or can there be a system? Assessment packs are live now, so they can be assessed. The passwords are available on Walled Garden. Apologies for the short silence breaks. I'm just trying to flip between these questions to see if we can uncover all of them. All the practical assessments, you can see the guidance on them. They're all available on the website and the packs. Obviously, we can't discuss the intricacies of those assessments over a webinar. You mentioned video conference for professional discussion. Is the professional discussion no longer going to take place during the practical assessment visit? Potentially, you could if time permits. Assume the gas work log needs to be completed prior to trigger. Gas work log is completed at the part of the on program. So I'm just going through. There's a couple of questions that obviously we've already answered. So. We currently carry out our own ISAs. Could you please confirm the standard that would be relevant to us? So again, that will be the 928-915, which is be going live next year. I think we've got around most of them. There's a couple of similar questions. I'm just trying to read through them to make sure we've answered as many as we possibly can. Please feel free to keep firing questions in if you've got them. Again, EPA prices will be available on Walled Garden. Really getting there, working with them now. We have an ACS centre. Who assesses the ACS side, please? So the assessors in the ACS centre, we do not assess the gas, ACS or equivalent part. Do you provide mock tests for knowledge papers and the design guide? All support materials located in the EPA Pro, which you can access when learners are registered. But yes, there is some sample tests. Apologies for the silence. I'm working my way through these. I appreciate some of you have got the answers. I'm just trying to read them out, so for anybody who wants to also know this information. Could you clarify how the integrated qualifications are assessed? You mentioned they are completed after the EPA period. So the idea is that the ACS or equivalent is assessed last, and then this will then trigger certification. So, practical assessments. Questions are starting to slow down. I think we've answered most of them. I'm trying to not duplicate any. Apologies if I missed any. So the 9189 practical assessment was 2 days. It was a different assessment for the 9189 to the 9289. So again, take a look at the packs, and please feel free to sort of come to me or email me outside, and we can discuss further. Can we cross-reference the gas log for the portfolio, or does the evidence need to be new installation service? The gas workbook is only completed for the on program and is not used against the EPA. We'll be completing the gas safety assessments on our own site. Does this mean that we will need to wait for the 2026 launch? Yeah, the 928915 will be launched in 2026. Questions are starting to slow down now. You say that gas is assessed by the gas centre assessors, but on your presentation you said that the CNN1 and CENWAT are in the EPA. Can you provide further clarification? It is in the EPA, but all the City and Guilds assessor is doing is checking the certificate. Questions are starting to slow down. I think we've answered most people's. Again, apologise if we've missed any. I hope today's been useful for a lot of you. Again, please feel free to reach out to myself or any member of the team if you need any further questions. I think we've pretty much covered all the questions so far that are in the chat that I can see. Mark, will there be any follow-up webinars? I suppose it's down to demand, really, if there's a requirement for follow-up webinars. But again, please feel free to reach out if you need any more information. No problem. Thank you. Again, I'm not seeing any more questions that we haven't covered at the moment. But again, I'm really sorry if I'm scrolling from top to bottom because they just drop in random orders. If there is anything, please feel free to email me or again, any one of the team. And again, I hope today's been really useful to you. There will be some more EPAs again, obviously, when we launch the 928913 and the 928915. So please keep an eye out for those. But other than that, I think we're pretty much at a wrap here, and I can let you come away from my dulcet tones and continue with the rest of your day. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you again. Look forward to catching up with some of you soon. Okay, I think we'll end the webinar there. It looks like everybody's leaving us now. Again, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend coming. Look after yourselves. Bye.